And a very good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to you, wherever you're watching in the world today. Welcome to Learning Now TV.
let's take a look at what's coming up on tonight's programme.
It's now time for this month's broadcast of Learning Now TV.
Welcome to Learning Now Television. This is our second programme for May. Nigel, what's on?
Well, I picked three really interesting items, Kate, that I'll share with you. The first is Ghent Armitage from Emerald Works. Ghent talks about the new survey that they're doing, part of their annual survey, but he also shares the 6 characteristics of a learning culture based on research that the company's done. And secondly, we've got Josh Nouvel from Warner Music talking about rolling out digital learning during a pandemic. And then finally, Danielle Hamilton from Thrive. Danielle shares how the organization has had to adapt and pivot on a sixpence in order to be relevant in the current climate.
Fantastic. Another packed lineup. Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. I'm really pleased to be talking to Ghent Armitage from Emerald Works. So what does a senior researcher do? Tell me what's on your agenda at the moment.
So essentially my day-to-day job, which is generally is mainly data analysis, collecting data from learning and development practitioners, from employees themselves, and understanding how workplace learning happens in practice. And that's the really core point here. Is not how it should happen, not how it could happen, how it actually happens. And simultaneously, I'm also doing a doctorate at Warwick Business School, focusing specifically on ambidextrous learning and how organizational learning practices implemented actually create that and create that environment for it.
And I think that whole concept of ambidextrous learning ties in with shifts going on at the moment in L&D. Are you finding that? Is your research aligning with the direction that L&D is going and the nature of the nudges and advice and guidance that Emerald Works can give corporate L&D?
It's so current, Nigel. So we're trying our best to understand as much as we can for our data collection as to what is going on. So at the moment, actually, and we keep this open 365 days, the learning health check is available for anyone to go and basically benchmark the strategy, the learning and development strategy, generally how they're implementing it and just some of the behaviors they're doing. And so we're implementing some questions to do with what the situation today is and how that will impact future direction forecasts. So that's kind of how we're trying to get to it. It's very hard to forecast at the moment. Now, I guess we can just talk about scenarios and some possibilities that are, possible. Yeah.
So let's just talk about what you're seeing. You've been doing some research on learning culture. Tell us about that. What's coming out of that? What are your, maybe not conclusions, but what are your thoughts going forward on learning culture?
Just generally, just to give a bit of background, so we try and break down learning culture into several parts. I guess we came to the realization that you can't really tackle it as one word. It's obviously a very, very broad term. So we broke it down into first looking at what are the top companies doing that is different to every other company. What kind of behaviors are they kind of implementing? What kind of relationship do they have with the business? What kind of technologies are they using? What is the purpose of the technology? Is it to simply use it for the sake of using it, or does it play a bigger part in terms of the ecosystem and generally what the aim is? And what we found is that there are about 6 habits that make up a really powerful learning culture. And I'll bring these up just so
Yes,
that I don't
bring them up.
I don't
I also think that is a fascinating word. 6 habits, not 6 competencies. Six habits, neurological. Things that are embedded in the brain. Go on, tell us what they are. That's fascinating.
So the first one is that what we see a difference is between really high performing organizations and the rest is that they have a clear intent in their learning and development team, I guess. And by intent, I mean, what is their relationship with business and how are they supporting the business and how are they pushing that forward? Are they working together to set up matrices and KPIs that are accountable? Both are accountable to that, the L&D side of it, but also the business side of it. It's about living up to those values that you've put forward. That's the aim of it. The next one is nudge behavior. We're really, really into it, mainly because we understand that it's part of an ecosystem. You need to help individuals, I guess, nudge their behavior to the right direction in the sense of like curiosity. You want to make things available when they need them, and sometimes just a small nudge will help them get back to where they were, and it's just really, really helpful. But also, what this includes and what this means and how top performers are doing this is that they are actively trying to understand how their people learn and do their job. And that's the beginning. Before you actually can do any nudges or any kind of form of, I guess, employing behavioral science principles, you need to understand behavior. You have to get to know that first before you do that. And then we have facilitate critical connections. This is all about thinking about the ecosystem, think about how technology, workplace, environment all work together. And it's nothing to do with just technology. It's about context, environment, behaviors all working together. How do you ensure that people have space to share? This is also to do with psychological safety a lot, and Amy Edmondson obviously talks about this a lot.
She does.
And it's so critical. It's such a critical variable in not only successful organizations, but successful teams, general work environment, and it just has an all-round good effect if you have that implemented.
And it's the foundation of innovation. You cannot innovate where there's no psychological safety.
And
absolutely right.
There's so much research out there exactly to what you just said, Nigel. If you don't have that implemented, it just doesn't happen.
Forget it.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. Or you overly focus on efficiency, which actually usually causes what academics refer to sometimes as competency traps, where you become so efficient at something that actually works against you because you're so holed into it.
You're blind to influences from outside and changes. Yes. Number four.
Sorry, I'm going through like a list. Drive experiences that matter. And I know we were talking just before this about the Apple experience, right?
Yeah,
it's about providing an experience that shows the value and shows value. When we do work with employees themselves, and we have a program, the Learning Intelligence Program, where we look specifically at how people, operate in workplace environments and how they learn themselves. And what we find usually is it comes up with things like, I don't have enough time to learn, right? So, and what we find is that that's usually a very surface level problem. It's never really about.
Absolutely, it's not fundamental.
It's nothing to do with actually their time. It's about value, because once you see the value, you'll find time. It's not really a.
You're quite right.
Number 5 is connecting with success. So this is about making sure that individuals have everything at their disposal to do what they need to do. If they want to be innovative, or you want them to be innovative, they need to have the resources to do that. Otherwise, and again, a lot of research out there related to this, if they don't have if you ask them to do something, or you push them to do something, and there's no resources out there for that to happen, frustration kicks in. Then you have problems with burnout, attrition rate, retention rate.
Yep.
Mainly because you're asking for something that isn't there.
Well, you're asking for bright star syndrome, i.e. you overemphasize the genius of the individual, and they flare up brilliantly and then fade. You need something across the whole organization. Number 6. I can't wait for number 6.
And number 6 is, as literally you actually foreshadowed about the skills and competency thing, it's about adapt capability need to need. And it's about the need. You don't create like skills frameworks. It's about what capabilities are necessary at the moment, learning how to learn, making sure that you have curious staff, and those people, whenever the time arises, like for example, just right now, things can like blow up very quickly. Everyone can be almost ready to tackle a problem, even though that problem has never been there before.
Yes, I agree. So let me just repeat those, and then we need to stop because we've been going on for a long time. I could talk to you forever.
I know.
First one is about intent. You've got to have strong intent. The second one is about manage behavior and know what the behaviors are before you can change them. The third one is critical connections. The fourth one is get focus on the experiences that really matter. The fifth one is connect with success. And the final one is adapt capabilities so that people can work in a new reality, can problem solve and move forward. I think that's a really great agenda. And I know you're doing a webinar shortly on that. Yeah. And I'm sure that is the main focus of the webinar. And if people just took these on board, you're moving towards transformation of L&D, I think. Real transformation of L&D.
Organizations are already doing this, and I think that's one of the points that the report is making, is that these are not something that we just kind of thought of and thought, oh, these were really cool things to do. We've looked at organizations that are really having an impact on business and having an impact on growth and productivity and transformation and performance, right? Because you want a balance between innovation but also efficiency. You want to be ambidextrous in one sense or another. And these are some of the things that set them apart from other organizations.
I think that's so important. Wonderful conversation. I'm really pleased to have had the chance to talk to you again. So Gent Armitage from Emerald Works, such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you very much. And keep doing the good stuff.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you.
In the L&D world, we all know our biggest challenge is knowledge fade and demonstrating ROI from our training interventions. At Elephants Don't Forget, we use artificial intelligence to guarantee that what you train your employees, they learn and retain. If you are looking to transform the impact your training content has in your business, improve the ROI, and perhaps help employees learn and retain even the dull regulatory material, drop me a line at nelly@elephantsdon'tforget.com.
With everyone now converting their classroom courses to online training, Rob Clark of Learning News talks to Juliet Denny, who's Managing Director of Growth Engineering, to talk about designing online learning effectively.
eLearning Guild recently reported 85% of organisations are putting some or all of their classroom courses online. We'll be talking to Juliet Denny, founder of Growth Engineering. I started by asking Juliet how we can make sure all of the online learning that the world is about to get is effective.
It's not what you teach, i.e. the subject matter, it's how you teach it. The reality is that the neocortex, the higher order thinking, is very bad at remembering facts, at putting facts into behavior changes. What we really need to do is we need to arrest the limbic brain, which is the area of the brain which houses our emotions and houses our memory. And the key to that is this idea of creating emotional resonance.
How do learning designers engage the limbic brain?
When you say to, Joe and Mary and whoever else in your frontline team, we've got something on trip hazards, you need to do it. What will they do? Anything but the health and safety course on trip hazards. Until you say, if you don't do it, you will get in trouble. Okay. So then we just turn ourselves into the school police, which is the last thing we want to do. Because obviously when we feel we have to do something and we feel we're going to get in trouble, our ability to stay curious about that subject just completely decimates. Now let me tell you about Mary, okay? So Mary works in the front line, of a call center. Unfortunately, Mary had an accident. Mary had an accident 2 weeks ago. Now we've caught up with Mary. Let's look at Mary's life. Mary lives at home with her 2 kids. She's a single mum, and she's broken her leg. Unfortunately, because she's broken her leg, she can't get her kids to school. Her kids are 10 and 12. Those kids have to get themselves to school, so they have to walk 3 miles a day. They also have to do the cooking, and they have to do the cleaning, they have to do the shopping. Mary has asked her mother, who lives in Spain, to come over and help them, but unfortunately Mary's mother can't because she is also ill. Now let's talk about what a trip hazard is.
Going through that story, Juliet, with you, I feel the pain of that, and gosh, I wouldn't like that to happen to Mary in my family, or to myself, or to somebody who's working for me.
One of the things that we all have within our businesses is we have mission, vision, and values, and those can form the epic meaning and underpin a lot of things. So when you put your people, when you convert your mission, vision, values, and interweave stories about heroes that are operating at the front line, what you get is twofold. You get, our business stands for this. It's rock solid. We will come out the other side. We are one tribe. We are one vision. We are one, one family, one force, and you're part of that.
How do we get that across in learning design?
The forgetting curve, the reality is the learning does need to be little and often. It has to be little and often. It has to be little and often because we need to treat learning more like a social community. It needs to be needs to be many to many, not a one to many experience. And one of the problems that we've got in the classroom, and one of the problems that we've got online or through Zoom is that people's attention spans, they max out. And so if they max out, we need to give them the opportunity to be part of that conversation. So the many to many is very important when we're combating the forgetting curve, because we can drip questions in for them to answer about Mary and Mary's life and how the trip hazard happened. I'm not engaged if somebody tells me what I've got to do. I'm only engaged if I can feel it, and if I can really, really show you how I'm going to protect Mary. Mary doesn't actually work in my area of the organisation, but you know what? I am going to make sure I'm going to be vigilant. So I've gone around. These are all the areas in my particular workspace that might have a trip hazard, right? That's what I've done about it, and I feel proud about doing that, yeah? And I'm going to share that with you. And then finally, we just need to reward that sort of user base that is actually applying and showing how they're applying that learning, yeah? So that the heroes of learning become the frontline people. And we know that this many-to-many model, this democratization of learning is the way learning is going. This is the way we are really going to be able to get people to be curious about the subjects that we want them to do.
Our learning experiences unlock potential, transform the performance of people and organisations, and help millions around the world build happy and successful careers. We change lives with evidence-based learning that works, sparking real change for real impact.
I'm thrilled today to welcome Danielle Hamilton from Thrive Learning. She is Chief Customer and Product Officer. I think I've got that right.
Well done.
And she's come today to talk to us a little bit about her role and a little bit about what Thrive are doing amidst the current COVID-19 crisis. So Danielle, welcome to Learning Now TV.
Thank you, Kate. Hello.
So we've had various conversations before. We've known each other for a little while. So can you tell us a bit about your role and what you do at Thrive?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a bit of a dual role, I guess. So my main part of my role is I look after all our customer-facing teams. So that's our customer success and our support teams, helping our clients with LXP implementations and success, really. And then I also sort of lead on the vision for our LXP. When I first started at Thrive, I was more on the product side and actually was a big part in building that. And so now I still continue to wear that hat with the rest of the team to make sure we're pushing in the right direction.
And how do you define that notion of success for a customer?
That's a very good question. It depends on each customer. So with our customers, we tend to set business metrics, and we also set engagement metrics. So engagement things would be like, are people actually using the platform for our LXP clients, and are they enjoying it, which is really important? Are they engaged? And on the business side, we actually look for each client. Well, what do you want to achieve with this platform? What's the point in putting it in the first place? Do you want to decrease attrition? Do you want to increase speed to onboarding? Do you want to increase your sales, or whatever it might be? And so we work with each client on their individual KPIs.
So it's context driven.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so obviously at Fosway, we don't really like the term LXP. We would define you as a specialist. And your specialism really as a platform is around kind of collaborative social engagement. How did you go around starting to build that? Because obviously you have been really instrumental in creating that platform.
Yeah, well, ours is a bit of a weird one, because one of our main goals we set out to do was actually to bridge the gap between the social stuff and the more formal stuff. We found that lots of clients we talked to from our previous roles wanted to have something social and collaborative and a bit more fun, but they had to do all the LMS-y type stuff and the more, let's say, the more boring stuff. So we actually set out to produce a system which actually caters for both and can do all the LMS features, but also the more of the focus and I guess our personal drive is on the social side of things. When we first set out on that side, I spent a lot of time looking at how we consume content in our personal lives and how we collaborate in our personal lives. So I did look at learning systems because obviously that's an important foundation, but most of the time I spent looking at things like YouTube and LinkedIn, Netflix and Amazon Prime and Pinterest, which is a favorite of mine. And even things like TikTok and Snapchat and that sort of thing. Actually, just how do people interact with those bits of content? And that was really important because we thought that if we could replicate some of that functionality and make the environment feel really familiar to people, then the adoption would go up a lot easier and people would find it more enjoyable to use.
I just want to take you back a little bit because we don't have many female chief technical officers and product specialists like yourself. As we know, not just in learning but more broadly, the tech industry is obviously very male dominated. So how did you get into the nuts and bolts of the technical stuff?
So my background is I started by doing a computer science degree for really pragmatic reasons. I did IT A level, which is not computer science at all. It's literally just spreadsheets and databases. And I did really well in documentation side of things. So I decided to take computer science because it was one of those where you definitely get a job in it. And partly being a woman, I've always been one of those people that sort of likes to shop a little bit. And I really, really enjoyed for those 3 years being able to say what I did with my degree, because most people meet me and think, oh, she's a ditzy blonde. And when you say you do computer science, people go like, oh, okay. So that's always quite fun. But that's how I started out with my computer science degree, where I was one of 3 girls on the course. I was like 90-something boys. Yeah, I know, right? Which is insane. Yeah.
And then you've worked across the industry in different roles, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. So once I finished my degree, I went straight to Kineo, and so I started my career as a developer. And then I quickly got involved with client projects. So I think I identified that where I really could add value was being that translator between clients who speak in plain English and more technical teams. And that was like a really good niche to find, I think, because there's not actually a huge amount of people who can do both. And I think that's where I could add value to my clients as well. So that's what I started doing at Kineo, and then I went to Fuse Universal, and then I had a stint at the L&D at Merck Pharmaceuticals. So I was working on the client side, which was also so valuable and really interesting, particularly when it comes to building Thrive, because I could see what it was actually like for a client, which was great.
And there's possibly not enough of that, right? having walked a mile in the client's shoes, I can see how that experience would be really valuable. And what are you doing? Obviously, the elephant in the room at the moment is the coronavirus situation. How are you guys helping your clients through that? Because obviously the parameters of success that you talked about are probably changed in the short term, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of them have just gone out the window, which is obviously completely understandable. So we've got a number of different things. So with our existing clients, we have been providing a lot of free content and resources and help around working from home, mental health and wellbeing, and that sort of thing, so they can start populating their sites with those and running different campaigns. So we're running a lot of campaigns around staying connected and the more human element, which I think is super important. We've also been doing we've got a new offering for a pop-up LXP, which is a very, very quick turnaround, like week and a half implementation, sort of preloaded. It's like a preloaded box of beautiful content that a client can just push out to people. And that's partly because we've had a few requests from people and clients coming along who either have furloughed employees who we want to still provide training to, because actually for L&D, this whole crisis is just a huge opportunity, I think, because people can still do training and development when they're furloughed or working from home, particularly in our retail clients. And so having this pop-up site allows them to actually give them a bank of resources really quickly without having to go through and make it themselves.
And can they stay in touch with each other using the collaborative element?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's quite important.
Because I think that's where people have got clients who use our tool for learning, and they've started to use it much more for comms now as well, which some of our clients did already and some didn't. And so the fact that their heads of departments or MD or whoever it might be can just do a quick selfie video, post it on the site and send it out to the right teams just immediately, it's been really, really valuable with company updates and also just making people feel like they're part of a team again. We had some really beautiful feedback from an end user at Breaks the other day that said that when she first got furloughed, she felt really alone and really a bit scared. And since using Thrive and contacting people again, she's felt part of a company again and part of a team, which was really sweet to hear. And that's sort of what we're hoping to help our clients do really in this weird time.
Yeah, and I think that there has been something of a knee-jerk rush to content, but it's really that connection that can help build on that. So it's really great to hear what you're doing on that front. And I suppose I'd just like to wrap up. We could talk all day, and we were talking for a long time before this, but what advice would you give to somebody looking to get into that more technical role? And like you said, you've got this sort of almost this niche around understanding the technical, but being able to translate that for maybe not so technical people.
Yeah, I think finding a niche is important. I think if I'm talking particularly to young girls around getting into technology, I think there's a huge emphasis on coding and development, and that is just such a small part of technology. And I think making yourself aware of all the other roles around it, like business analysts and solutions architects and those more client-facing roles, which actually do get to travel around the world and work loads of different businesses and are really cool and exciting. I think there's a really weird perception that tech roles are boring and you're sat behind a desk in a basement. So I think for me, if I'm giving some advice, I would say to research those roles and get a bit more understanding about those, and then see how you get into them. That's what I did eventually. So I think that'd be really valuable.
And you've just jogged my memory. Are you still working on this coding academy idea that you've had?
Yeah, so it's the foundation. Yes. In the background, it's obviously slowed down a bit recently because we can't even go to schools. So yeah, and that's specifically that. So it's focusing not on coding and not on development. It's actually showing young girls, sort of target age 14, 15, sort of options ages. That there are other roles out there, whether things like digital marketing or even graphic design and that sort of thing, which are quite technical now, animation, things like that. And then more of my side of things, like working with clients to scope solutions and things like that. So yeah, that's something I'm really excited about. I'm hoping that when the schools go back, we can pick it up again.
Oh, well, definitely.
Yeah.
And, come back and talk to us about it when, when things do go back to the new normal, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to. That'd be great.
Great. Danielle Hamilton, thank you.
Would you like to do an MBA that is based on people more than strategy and finance, that explores happy workplaces and how you create organisations based on trust and freedom? That's what Happy is planning to launch in June 2020 in partnership with Ravensbourne University, a creative and media college. And it will all be funded from the apprenticeship levy. So if your organisation pays the levy, it will come out of that levy. If it doesn't pay the levy, because you're a small organisation, it will only cost £1,000 for a 2-year development programme with other senior leaders, spending at least a day a month in the classroom and committing 20% of your time to it, including a major project in your organisation to put these ideas into practice. The Happy MBA from June 2020.
Robin Hoyle is back. Ever optimistic, Robin is focusing on the upside of this pandemic and the kinds of new skills and competencies we're all acquiring as a result.
In the last session that I did for Learning Now TV, I talked a little bit about some of the perhaps unexpected benefits for learning and development teams of the lockdown, particularly around timing, the ability to drip feed things in, to target individuals with particular inputs. The fact that e-learning and digital content generally is getting a bit of a boost. The idea that people are no longer simply trying to replicate the real world online and are actually adapting and using online and web-based capabilities. And finally, that learners have got used to collaboration, and therefore when we're asking people to collaborate using digital tools, that's becoming a lot easier for us. We're pushing at an open door with people who may have been somewhat resistant in the past. This time I want to turn to the idea of learners and some of the skills and capabilities that have been engendered as a result of the lockdown, which I hope will endure. And the first is, I think people have become more discriminating. And by that, I mean that I think they're starting to sift information which is reliable from misinformation. They're starting to see conspiracy theories that are very wild-eyed and see them for what they are. And they're also being less trustful and more questioning. So the fact that somebody stands behind a podium and says something doesn't necessarily mean that it is true. And people are being very clear about the comparative data, for example, about coronavirus infections and death rates in different countries, and saying, well, why is that different from here? Why is this happening in one country in one way and in another country in a completely different way? And I think that questioning is useful. I think people are thinking beyond slogans and wanting research evidence and being able to compare one thing with another and draw their own conclusions. I think people are also much more used now to using multiple platforms to do the things which the platform is designed to do. So I've spoken to a number of clients over last couple of years where the focus has been, well, no, we've got this one system and we want everything to go through this one system. And what they've found is that in this period where people are making lots of use of different forms of technology to collaborate, to work, to work with teams, to work with customers, etc., is they're finding that actually the one system solution is neither necessary nor effective. And so we're finding that individual learners are much more used to swapping between systems, using a system over here that's really good at one thing, rather than a different system, but they will use that different system if that's good at something else. And they're quite happy to switch between 2, 3, 4, 5 systems as they're doing their daily work. And that's useful for those who are saying, well, actually, Putting everything through your learning management system might not work. Actually using everything through your one-size intranet may not work. And actually trying to include learning within, for example, your customer relationship management system isn't probably going to be as effective as having a bespoke standalone platform which enables people to learn and collaborate and use the tools effectively. So those are all good things. I think the other one which I hope will endure is around people's ability to self-manage their learning. Now, in part, I think that's coming about because individuals can see that one of the outcomes, and maybe quite a worrying outcome of this lockdown period, is increased automation. Organisations are already reporting that they're getting lots more inquiries about AI, about various forms of robotics, machine learning, because they've recognised that actually where people are difficult to work with, particularly if they can't all get to the same place, machines don't have any of those restrictions. And people who are smart are beginning to look over their shoulder and go, well, maybe automation is coming after my job. My feeling was it always was coming after your job, but now this has been accelerated. I'm reminded of probably my favourite quote about learning, and it was said by Eric Hoffer, who was a social philosopher working in the 1960s. And he said, in times of change, learners inherit the earth. The learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. Well, we're certainly going through times of change, and I think that those people who believe that we're going to come out of lockdown into a world which resembles exactly the world that we left probably got another think coming. So maybe it is time for self-managed learning, for people who are interested in learning, for people who are embracing learning, to thrive and to develop. And I hope their capabilities endure whatever the world looks like when we come out of this.
Studies have shown that learning programs are now crucial weapons in the fight to attract and retain talent. Working closely with modern learning organisations across the globe, we have developed Learning Programs of Excellence, a prestigious award recognising exceptional, state-of-the-art learning programs. If you're a learning department or function, LPE will help you attract new talent. You'll boost your appeal as an employer by showcasing the calibre of your learning programs and development opportunities within your organisation. If you're a provider of learning, LPE gives you an absolute guarantee that your learning programs are capable of creating a lasting positive effect on performance and business outcomes. Get in touch with the Learning and Performance Institute now and begin your Learning Program of Excellence journey.
It's a great pleasure to lure Will Tolheimer to Learning Now TV just for a very short interview. I particularly want to talk to Will about this conference that he's curating, I guess, leading, putting together for all of us, that starts in June and runs for 6 weeks. So let's just talk about the conference, Will. Tell me, first of all, the dates and how have you structured it and what makes it different from 1,000 conferences that were going to be face-to-face and are now running on Zoom?
So the conference is the L&D Conference 2020. And so my podcast partner, I have a podcast called Truth in Learning with Matt Richter. And in the middle of March, on March 17th, we said, you know what? We could see what was happening, that the coronavirus was going to shut down every face-to-face conference, and that there would be this need out there for an opportunity for people to still learn from each other, to learn from the thought leaders, to get together, to network, all that. And that was going to be wiped out. And so this was March 17th. And then we just said, okay, let's do it. And we did, at first said, oh, can we really do this? And we said, yes, we can. And so we got together with Ashley Sinclair, who became our marketing guru. And on April 1st, we were up and running. We were taking registrations. And so here's the idea. We thought to ourselves, okay, what can we draw what's the best things about a face-to-face conference that we want to keep? And what are the things that even those conferences aren't quite as good as they might be? So, the things that we wanted to keep. We wanted to keep the networking. We wanted to keep the good information. We wanted to keep, the intimacy, sort of the craziness, the fun. But we did realize, and, we're learning experts, right? So we did realize that, how would you design if you were like a learning expert and you wanted to design a conference from the ground up, you could do anything. Well, you could do it anything but online. What would you do? So we thought to ourselves, okay, well, at a typical conference, it's over 3 days. You might go to 12 sessions, and a couple of them are really good. Some of them are bad. Most of them in between. But even you've got this information, you get energized. You've got some things you want to take back with you to the workplace. But you get back and you're tired from traveling, and you've got this to-do list. It's all, your inbox is staffed up. It's crazy. It's hard to get going on the things that you wanted to put into practice. So we thought to ourselves, okay, well, this is an opportunity to sort of overcome that issue. And so it's over 6 weeks. So imagine yourself as a participant. We've got like 30 featured sessions on all kinds of things. The theme of the conference is the foundations and the future of L&D. And so got all these sessions from presentation science, storytelling, to AI, machine learning. We've got it all. And we sort of curated this. We wanted to pick out, I'm a research to practice guy. So gathered a lot of the research to practice people, the best people in the world, people like Julie Dirksen, Clark Quinn, Miriam Nealon's going to be there, Carl Kopp. I'm blanking on people, but we got a whole bunch of those folks. We got people that are really practical, that are aligned with the research. And so we got them doing asynchronous sessions over 6 weeks. So you go to one of their sessions and you go, oh, this is great stuff. I'm going to take this back to the team. So you're in week 1 or week 2, you take it back to your team and you see whether it resonates with them, whether they resist it. You take that back to the conference, then you go back to your workplace, you put something into place, you try it out. And you bring your lessons learned back. What are your successes? Where did you have challenges? And then you've got this world-class speaker who's there and all these really smart people that are in the conference, and they help you out. And so we think, and we're sort of calling this a learning in the workplace kind of conference.
Learning in the flow. So basically,
yeah,
instead of just a one-off listening to the wonderful Will Tolheimer speak for 45 minutes and then see you later, you can actually build a relationship with the speakers. So
Absolutely.
you come in and you say, we tried this, it didn't work. How would you suggest we deal with this? So you've got this attempt to kind of build a bit of continuous learning over a period of time, and therefore really do something useful back in the workplace, as opposed to have an interesting time, take a whole bunch of notes, never see the light of day again. It's really interesting. I don't know anyone who's done this, Will, do you? This seems to me like a real attempt to rethink what a conference could be if we're going to do it online.
Yeah, we're going to be pioneers here. We're trying things out that make sense from a learning standpoint, from a logistics standpoint. But at the same time, we'll probably do a few things that don't work that well. So that's what pioneers do. We're trying it. We're trying to be innovative. So we expect some bumps in the road, but we're also very excited. We're also going to have synchronous sessions as well. So we have these asynchronous sessions. Some of our featured speakers will give synchronous sessions on topics of their choosing. But we also are going to have panels. We're going to have debates. We're going to have things called press conferences, where people in the attendees can ask questions of some of these thought leaders. We're going to have 99-second talks. Anybody can give one. We're going to have networking events. Sponsors can come and sponsor it, and if they sponsor at a certain level, they can give a session. We want to to break some things and try some things out. We're going to have this thing called a discount house. We're going to have roundtables where you can go, sort of a networking session where, you know, one speaker or facilitator will pick a topic and then you can rotate around through them. So really, it's going to be pandemonium, but lots of learning and lots of fun.
Yeah, and it'll become, I hope it becomes part of the life of the participants. So it will be a kind of day-to-day interaction, not just a one-off or a couple of days. And therefore they can pick and choose, they can drop in, drop out, they can pick what interests them, they can look at sessions and discover new things, they can rehearse old things. It's all there for them. I think this is a fantastic idea, Will. Great to talk to you, Will, and good luck with the conference.
Thank you, Nigel. It's always wonderful to talk with you.
DPG's online courses are designed to fit around your life, so you can study anytime, anywhere. Get in touch now for more info.
I'm delighted to welcome this month Josh Novell, who is recently started a new role in the midst of the COVID crisis as Digital Learning Manager at Warner Music. Josh, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll come back to the kind of the COVID and the situation in a moment, but tell us a bit about your new role. Sounds like a great challenge.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity. Obviously, Warner Music is one of these well-known brands that no one even realizes. We've got the likes of like Ed Sheeran and things like that going through our systems, which is incredibly cool, but we're not one of these kind of front-of-mind brands that really exist. And it's really quite surprising because they are very greenfields when it comes to digital learning. They've got some fantastic kind of coaching and face-to-face pieces, but when it comes to a like global digital learning offering, they don't really have much in place. So it's a really exciting opportunity to learn from all the kind of big organizations that I've been in the past, where I've been compressing down these mad, overgrown ecosystems to really kind of put together some really meaningful pieces that work together really nicely from the ground up.
And how has it been, obviously you started in March, so how has it been starting a new job in lockdown?
It's super weird, and like all this stuff started happening like actually during the interview process. So I had my first interview kind of on the phone and chatting to a few people. Second interview, I went into the office and got taken into like the C-suite meeting room that they got downstairs and all that sort of fun stuff. And that was really cool. And then obviously all of this happened and offices started closing and everything like that. And everything from that moment onwards, so meeting the rest of the team, final stages of interview, contract negotiations, all that sort of stuff has been completely remote. Then kind of arranging a start date, which I got stuck in Morocco for a little bit in between as well. So that was all exciting. And then coming in and then feeling like, how do we actually get equipment to? We don't know how to do this stuff. The laptops are in the office, but can we go in the office? And then just literally working with people. And I can see the team is such a kind of tight-knit collaborative bunch where they've been working together for years. And obviously coming in as a new person in that, but also working remotely. And some of these people I'm working with, and I'm possibly never going to actually meet face-to-face, or I'll be walking down the corridor one day and I'll be like, Duncan, is that you? And like just realizing it's a guy with a beard that I happen to have talked to online. And yeah, it's going to be a really cool experience, but everyone's been super friendly and welcoming so far, which has been really cool.
And one assumes that they, Warner Music had a brief and a vision for what you were going to be doing. And I guess the question is, how has that changed in light of the coronavirus situation? I'm guessing that your original brief has probably changed quite a lot.
Yeah, well, the original brief was obviously come in, kind of pull together a strategy of what you think digital learning at least, could look like over the next couple of years. As you can imagine, there's considerable budget savings in things like the face-to-face courses at the moment. So that's really accelerated this program. So we've had to really start working in a very agile methodology in what things can we do very quickly and very turnkey solutions can we pull in to make sure that we're getting kind of the minimum effort but maximum impact style of things. So a lot of new focus, but everyone seems really up for it, which is something really quite nice I'm experiencing.
And we were talking before about the kind of, initially there was a remit around kind of your traditional content, learning content, but you're trying to go for more of an in the flow of work approach. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. I can talk to that about a bit more. I think where I've come in is quite greenfields. One of perhaps the mindsets that I'm talking to people about at the moment is they kind of view digital learning as there will be some e-learning packages somewhere on a system that people will be able to access at some time. And actually, I'm kind of reversing that a little bit, or at least reinterpreting my kind of vision in there. So it's things like having things like overlay technologies actually embedded in some of the systems we're looking at using ourselves, so that when people actually need that help and support, they're not having to dig out a module or a PDF guide and things like that. So all of that is kind of taken care of. So all of that, how do I do it, is kind of embedded in the tools itself. There might still be some modules sitting to the side about why we're doing it and all that change management piece. And then when it comes to everything else, we're starting to work in a lot more kind of a marketing and campaign driven approach, where we're looking at partnering with the various territories that we have around the globe, so that they can start putting learnings into their key moment messaging. So if there is real uproar at the moment about people not knowing when the offices are going to be really reopened, and if we can send and support some messages of the CEOs saying, we've got to stay calm, we've got to be resilient, but we've also got to be mindful of our people, we can slip some learning in there and actually start hiding it throughout there. So I kind of imagine a bit of an iceberg model in the end, where a good 70% of what we're going to do, people aren't actually going to even realize is digital learning. It's just going to be kind of hidden for them.
I was going to say, I like that phraseology of hiding it sort of almost by stealth.
Yeah, I keep going for like the hide your veggies approach at the moment.
It's a good one. And I guess because people are in a situation where they can't just turn to their neighbour and say, oh, Bill, do you know how to do this? You know, they need more of that performance support type stuff.
Yeah, it's exactly that sort of stuff and exactly that sort of messaging that I'm reining it in on, where everyone has that kind of techie friend within the team that they can tap up for 5 minutes and go, oh, can you show me how to do a VLOOKUP or something like that? And it just simply means that it removes that complications and probably alleviates some of the stress on these poor guys' inbox if they're constantly getting these 5-minute favors. As we all know at the moment, those 5-minute desk conversations are becoming half-an-hour meetings in the diary at the moment. And just literally alleviating that time, I think, is going to be really good for the organization.
That's brilliant. Well, it sounds like you've really got your hands full, and we're hoping that you can come back in a few months' time and you've really got some of this stuff moving to tell us a bit more about it. The one final thing I did want to ask you, Josh, is that obviously you were job hunting at a time of huge disruption. And we know that there's going to be people within L&Ds whose roles are affected by the current crisis. Have you got any particular tips or, any insights about what worked for you in that process? Because you've come through it, obviously, in a great way.
Yeah, I think some real pieces for me is it's made me really kind of view my online community in a whole kind of different light of the people I'm connected to. Kate, you'll know that kind of as soon as I was looking around on the market, I was tapping up the 2 Daves and kind of saying, what's going on at the moment? Let's kind of bounce some ideas. Does this sound absolutely crazy? I was talking to kind of people that I know and trust, like Amanda and Laurie and Nicole from Heineken as well, that does some really cool stuff over there, and just generally kind of sense check and put the feelers out. And through that, I was really kind of warmly welcomed about how wide they cast their net for me as well, in order to even get me talking to the right people to shape things. And I really appreciated the network there. And for me, I've seen so many little pockets from kind of LPI and ELN and even just random people out in the industry just spring up saying, I'm hosting random Zoom sessions, and let's hope they don't get Zoom bombed. But just going in and meeting some of the people that I've known of but never really known properly, and having a chance to actually really have really good conversations with them now. For me, that's one of the really key things that I think has kept me sane, but also helped me through this.
That's brilliant. So almost doubling down on some of the existing connections, take the advice and leverage that network.
Yeah, exactly that. And don't be scared to make a random unicorn video every now and then as well.
Or a sock monkey. in my case. Well, Josh, thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you back on Learning Now TV again soon.
Look forward to it.
Thanks.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed that show. I thought it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Kate, did you manage to wheedle out any events that we can share with everybody?
Happily, yes. You'll have heard us talk about the fact that CIPD are running their Learning and Development event online on the 10th and 12th of June. You'll also have heard Will earlier talk about the L&D conference, which starts on the 22nd of June, which we're obviously both taking part in. Very exciting. And my sources tell me that Learning Technologies will be doing something virtual in place of Summer Forum. So stay tuned for more details on that.
Something. Excellent. We'll bring more details in our next program, which will be in June. See you next time.